Dear listener, before the story begins, I ask you to subscribe to my channel. This is the best motivation at the start. And we are starting. Title: A Memorable Wedding Day. Indeed, it was a remarkable wedding day. After ending my relationship with my partner of nearly 3 years, I was undoubtedly crestfallen for a period. But fate intervened one evening at a nightclub. There, I encountered her. Or rather, she approached me. A slender, stunning model. We became acquainted and engaged in conversation. As we sat at the table, she reached for her phone to summon a taxi, and I noticed beloved among her frequently dialed contacts. I chose not to inquire further. I escorted her home, and the following day we reunited and ventured to the cinema. She mentioned that she resided and worked in New York and would be departing again shortly. I responded, "That's fine with me," and we went our separate ways. A week passed, and she called, expressing, "I yearn for you and I'm coming to visit." We met at the club, from where I proceeded to the train station to greet her, and then we retired to the hotel. There, we reveled for 3 days, indulging in pleasure, dining, imbibing, and making love. In the bedroom, she was ablaze with passion. She divulged details about her involvement with a man from my city, as well as a wealthy construction company director in the metropolis, with all the associated implications. In essence, our relationship took flight. She became enamored with me. Severing ties with her previous partner and the affluent gentleman, we would visit each other frequently. At the time, I was a 5th-year student at a technical university, earning a living through online poker. My earnings equated to roughly 3 times the average salary in a typical provincial town. This is not intended as a boast, merely a statement of fact. It should be noted that her income far surpassed mine by a significant margin. On one occasion, she proposed that it was time for us to cohabitate, and I enthusiastically concurred. We resolved that she would depart from New York, as I was engaged in full-time studies, and long-distance relationships proved quite vexing. We commenced living together. And my friends, she exhibited no trepidation about residing with a student who sustained himself through gambling. She was prepared to relinquish her opulent existence in the big city. As the saying goes, with my love, even a humble abode is paradise. In short, I brought her to our hometown. Our joy knew no limits, and that is the truth. Love, idle, bliss, a fairy tale. These words encapsulated our relationship. Then I completed my university education. Seeking employment was decidedly not a viable option, as the monthly salary in my field equated to what I could earn in just a few days of playing. I played daily, sometimes for days on end when a skilled group assembled. Less frequently, I participated in live games. I must confess that I devoted the vast majority of my time to the game, and it yielded dividends. After a couple of years, I was competing at an exceptionally high level, amassing substantial wealth. She understood me, celebrated my triumphs, and shared in my defeats. She spent her time at salons and fitness clubs with her friends. I also prohibited her from working. We seldom argued, but on one occasion, she had an outburst regarding my gambling. I elucidated the matter clearly, explaining that I cannot live differently, and moreover have no desire to do so. I assuaged her concerns, and a few days later, I surprised her. A brand new red Mercedes coupe was parked beneath the windows of our apartment. She was over the moon with happiness. After some time, we decided to wed. We orchestrated an absolutely mind-blowing wedding ceremony. We commenced preparations for this momentous occasion, and I believe everyone now comprehends the magnitude of such an undertaking. And so, one evening, as I sat at the computer, stripping another unsuspecting victim, I overheard a peculiar conversation on the phone. Specifically, her voice. The same voice I had heard years ago when we longed for each other so intensely and spent hours conversing on the phone during our times apart. In that instant, I was pressed into the chair. My vision darkened, and the tables with the cards became jumbled. I was in such a state of shock that words cannot adequately convey it. I realized that yes, the end had crept up on us unnoticed. But how, I pondered, with the wedding merely a month and a half away? I sat for an hour, perhaps 2, nearly motionless, vacantly staring at the monitor. Eventually, descending the stairs, I inquired about the identity of the person she was speaking with. Naturally, she claimed it was a friend. Well, what else could she say? But her body language betrayed that it was a bluff. And believe me, it is challenging for an ordinary individual to deceive a poker player, as I was well versed in nonverbal communication. The experience of the game, combined with the study of psychology, you understand. In the morning, I took her car, informing her that I would bring it to the service center to install a new alarm system. I had an alarm installed in the Mercedes with mobile phone control, which, fortunately, is quite affordable these days, and readily available at nearly every specialized service center. I registered my number in the program. This, in turn, allowed me to call the Mercedes by dialing a specific code. I could listen to everything transpiring within the vehicle. I understood with 99% certainty that our relationship had reached its conclusion, and only with a probability of 1% could I have misinterpreted her voice during that previous day's call. I will not burden you with the details of my emotions. I will not. Only one thought persisted in my mind: how to punish this expletive. I devised a brilliant plan. I apologize. To remain silent, proceed with the wedding, and live happily ever after. But listen, dear listeners, do not hastily draw conclusions or prematurely label me an idiot, a cuckold, and so forth. Hear me out until the end. Thus, a month before the wedding, I could no longer conceal my emotions. She discerned that something was amiss. I attributed it to daily losses of substantial sums. She believed it and suspected nothing. A couple of weeks prior to the wedding, I mentioned to her that I wished to sell her Mercedes and purchase something akin to a Cayenne. Higher, because my beloved is precious to me and I prioritize her safety above all else. It worked like a charm. I sold the car within a day, a third below market value. I was indifferent, and so we continued until the wedding day. Everything was in place: the registry office, the finest restaurant, all the relatives. Everyone took their seats, drank, and the merriment commenced. We, of course, were seated at the head of the table. I awaited the opportune moment. Everything was decided. "Bro, pass me the bottle of vodka," I said to my brother. "Dude, what's with the vodka? You still have your wedding night ahead," my friend replied. I said to him, as I recall now, "Listen, I really need it. Here, hold it." Then I poured myself a full glass of vodka. Imagine, I stood up and grasped the microphone. "Dear guests, I am grateful that you all found the time to attend our wedding. And believe me, I could not fail to prepare a gift for you as well." Everyone fell silent at that moment, listening to my speech with genuine attentiveness. I continued, "I drink to you, my dear ones. Pour it. Let's drink together." And everyone obediently drank. I, in turn, downed the entire glass of vodka with trembling hands. "And now for the surprise, as I promised. DJ, play the flash drive I gave you." The DJ, somewhat dumbfounded and perhaps even timidly, reached into his pocket, retrieved the flash drive, and inserted it. Everyone froze. Then a dialogue became audible. "Hello? Hi, darling, how are you today? Sorry, today is unlikely to work out." "Why is that? Has your sucker decided to take a day off today?" "Oh, come on, can he beat everything? All the money in the world needs to be won. He sits upstairs there in his office." "I can't. I want you. Where are you now, baby?" "I'm driving from the salon home. I think I should at least feed him." Laughs at this point. "I'm also so hungry I could eat you up." Tempting. "Agree, you won't regret it. At least for half an hour. I miss you." "Well, okay then. I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. Are you ready, my naughty boy?" "Always ready, baby." "Okay, I'll be there soon." That's how my tale concluded, friends. That's why I can consider the wedding a masterpiece. But a couple of words about my current state. Now, I'm doing great. I haven't engaged in any serious relationship since. And I have not the slightest desire to do so. As for the bride, I simply wanted to expletive her. It can't be said in polite company, but I deemed it too lenient a punishment for her actions. Then I considered saying no, at the registry office, but it seemed somewhat too feminine. Wouldn't you agree? Finally, I decided that humiliating her in disgrace would be just right. After the recording ended, I must admit, things did not unfold according to plan. Some didn't comprehend anything at all, particularly the older folks. Someone exclaimed that it was a prank. Yes, there was that as well. The fact is, approximately 70% of the attendees were unaware that I earn a living through gambling, and the bride's voice was somehow, unfamiliar to those who didn't know her well. It was simply challenging to discern, and for acquaintances too, for that matter. I was perplexed and couldn't think of a way to conclude it. Guests, the bride will now explain everything to you. At that moment, that very glass of vodka, I remember it now, had already begun to take effect. I turned to her and thrust the microphone in her direction. She knocked it out of my hands and fled outside in tears. My loved ones approached me, began embracing and comforting me, and I said, "Guys, I'm fine." My brother whispered to me, "I always knew you were a monster, but to this extent? Man, everyone will remember your wedding for the rest of their lives. Yes, you're awesome." I instructed the best man to return the gifts. I asked him to sign each gift, and he was initially aware of this outcome. The toastmaster was also informed. I requested that he comfort all the guests and prepare a speech along the lines of, "Anything can happen in this life," and so on and so forth. And so it was. Everyone gradually began to disperse, but my friends and I indulged in a bit of cocaine and ventured off to enjoy ourselves at a brothel. That's how it transpired. A few days later, the bride called me, inquiring about when the divorce would take place. Amusingly enough, we divorced without drama, quietly and peacefully. Where she is now, I do not know. After that, our paths never crossed again. Thank you for listening to my story. I believe it will be remembered.